The war in Ukraine has changed the world. And now we need to think about where this world is moving to, together. That's why MIM Business School is launching the nationwide educational project Reinforce UA, where the world's greatest minds will share their ideas and insights. And you will get their experience, change your perspective, and discover what changes should the business be ready for, before and after the victory. Every week on reinforceua.com.
Good evening. Welcome everybody on Reinforce UA project. I'm Vyacheslav Pokatila, and on behalf of MIM Kyiv Business School, appreciate everybody who joined today despite of this troublesome time. Probably some use power banks to connect. The project Reinforce UA, just to remind, is designed to support and to bring new ideas to Ukrainian business communities, and became possible due to the support of Bogdan Havrilishin Family Foundation, 50 Thinkers Organization, and 3 international business education associations, ACSB, AMBA, and AFMD. Today, we have a very interesting and very famous guest, Professor Alf Rehn, who will be speaking on innovation and the current possibility to innovate in this very interesting world. Professor Rehn is Professor of Innovation Design Management in the University of Southern Denmark. He author of a bestseller book. His last 2 books are very impressive. Dangerous Ideas, published in 2011, and Innovation for the Fatigued, published 2 years ago. And he's recognized as a global thought leader in innovation, creativity, future thinking, and leadership. Work in different countries, including North Korea, as far as I could gather. And we are looking forward to this particular presentation. I'd like to remind everybody that it's an online session, and at the second part you will be able to ask questions, but please use Q&A button, not chat, for this purpose. Professor Rehn, we are very thankful for you and grateful for your time, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's a pride. It's a great honor to be here. And for somebody who actually has family in the Ukraine, I was, of course, immediately ready to join this fine initiative. And I will now start by sharing my screen so we have something to talk about. I hope you can see this. And thank you for the introduction. I often like to kind of tell people a little bit about who I am and why I talk about the things I talk about. My name is, as said, Alf Rehn. I am Finnish by birth, Swedish speaking also by birth, and Danish by accident. I live in all of the Nordic countries almost, and have worked with innovation and creativity issues for close to 30 years by now. And I am, of course, a professor, as my fine colleague here said, but I like to point out that I'm not just a professor. Yes, I do work with this in an academic fashion. I write for the kinds of journals that nobody reads, but I've also worked for over 20 years on innovation issues and creativity issues in some of the biggest companies in the world. And I have worked with creativity and innovation in a very practical manner. So when I was invited to speak here today, I said I want to talk about 2 things, really. I want to talk about innovation today, innovation right now in these challenging times, but I also want to talk about innovation tomorrow. And what I'm going to sort of talk to you about today is partly, how do we create organizations that can be innovative not just once or twice by accident, but actually be innovative in a sustained fashion? And I also want to talk about how the coming age of innovation, after the victory, after the troubles have passed, what will we be able to achieve? because I believe that we're entering not into a worse age, even though these times are, of course, quite troublesome for many, for you far more than for me, and for that you have my warmest sympathy and support. But also that we are going to move towards an age where we will be able to create miracles. And I actually believe that Ukraine and Ukrainian companies are very well placed to be leading this new age of augmented innovation. But before we get there, before we get to the future, there are some things I believe needs to be said about the here and now. And I'm going to talk today around 3 specific themes. I wanted this to be somewhat pedagogical. I'm going to start by talking a little bit about innovation today. Not just about the good stuff, but about the challenges and the problems and the issues that we're seeing. I want to continue by talking about what I like to call your innovation architecture. That is, I've worked with companies all over the planet, in the US, in the Ukraine, and yes, even in North Korea. And I often see the same problems again and again in organizations. And it's not a lack of ideas. It's not a lack of competencies, but rather a lack of a structured architecture that can take ideas, weak as they are at first, and make them into something great. I want to end by talking a little bit about this augmented innovation, or what I hear called the future of innovation, and what you need to start getting ready for already now, because there are some technologies and changes that will completely change how we think about creating new things and redeveloping our organizations. So let's start with innovation today. As said, I'm a professor of innovation. I work with innovation globally. I've written books about it. And frankly, I'm a little skeptical about it all. I know what I'm supposed to say here. I'm going to say here and say about how innovation is this fantastic thing and how you, yes, you need to take charge of innovation. But the thing is, I see 2 things when I look around the world today. I do see good things. I see positive use of technology. I see positive things in how we're thinking about sustainable innovation. But I also see something by way of a crisis. And this crisis is not something that was created by the pandemic. It's not something that was created by this barbarous war that you are now suffering from. It was something that existed before both of these. And that is, we talk a lot about innovation. We talk a lot about how innovation should be this, and I realized that the picture now took away my fantastic sentence, so you'll have to excuse that. We talk a lot about how innovation is this powerful thing, is this wonderful thing. But at the same time, a lot of our innovation talk is quite empty. I try to remind people that every year, we as a global society publish more than 1,200 books about innovation and creativity. That's more than 100 books every month. That's more than 3 books a day, or at least close to it. And that's a lot. At the same time, it's not like this enormous amount of books and Twitter feeds and LinkedIn groups and various kinds of innovation conferences means that we have become more innovative. One could even say, on the contrary, this amount of innovation talk has also led to an absolute tsunami of innovation cliches, of buzzwords, of, and pardon my French here, innovation bullshit. You'll have people who look a lot like me, turtleneck, cool glasses, will come on big stages and say, you need to understand, it's innovate or die. They say stupid things like, you have to think outside the box, and I hate it. I hate these empty cliches. I hate these kind of slogans and buzzwords because I've seen what they create in organizations. They create not a more energized organization. They create not an organization that is more keen to do great things. On the contrary, this sloganeering, this playing around with innovation words has created a culture rife with stress. People get stressed when they hear these slogans and have no idea what it means for them. And also what I have dubbed innovation fatigue. Because I'm so old by now that I remember when I went into organizations and said, hello, my name is Alf Rehn. I'm here to help you work on your innovation initiative. And they were happy to see me. These days, more than often than not, when I come and say, oh, yes, we're starting up a new innovation initiative, workers go, oh, not again. One more time around this innovation, one more slogan from a consultant, one more brainstorm. And people are tired. People are fatigued. And I would imagine that in the Ukraine right now, when people have other things to think about, they don't want one more slogan. They have other more pressing things to think about. And it's true all over the world. People have gotten tired of the innovation talk. And I understand them, because a lot of the innovation talk is empty. So what we need, if we are to start rebuilding the Ukraine, our organization, one of the things, not the only thing, first thing we need is peace, but one of the things we need is a better innovation discourse, a better way to talk about innovation that feels meaningful and respectful to the people in our organizations. Too often, I go into organizations and I talk to people and say, okay, what do you think about this kind of innovation project? And they say, that's something for the managers. That's something for the bosses. That's not my thing. I'm not paid attention to. I'm not listened to. Why would I care? So we need to build innovation discourses where we show we actually care. We're not just saying innovate or die. We're saying this is something we want to do together with all of you. And as a way to start a better innovation discourse, I have suggested talking about something which might sound strange to you at first, but which I have dubbed your innovation architecture. Now, I know some of you will be slightly confused by now, because why architecture? Let me start from here. There are numerous innovation consultants and speakers who try to sell you a magic pill. They're trying to tell you that there is this one thing you can do which will make your company innovative forever. And depending on who it is, they will say things such as psychological safety, or they'll say things such as consumer-centric behaviors, or they'll say things like business model innovation. But I don't believe in those. I don't believe that there would be one singular magic pill that will make every company more innovative. There are no tricks. But at the same time, we like to believe in tricks. We want there to be a trick, because wouldn't it be wonderful if there simply was this one thing you could do that would make your company more innovative, more successful, more everything in a simple trick. But because we believe this, we have a tendency to create not an innovation architecture, but what I call innovation magic tricks. And one of the most hilarious, silly, and yes, stupid of them is the creativity room. As I said, I, at least before the pandemic and increasingly now, travel around the world to talk about innovation in companies. And what happens here is that I go to various headquarters in Kiev, in Frankfurt, in London, in New York, and yes, even in Pyongyang. And I'm met by a CEO or a vice president, and I'm given the tour. And more often than not, actually almost every time, they want to show me a magic pill. They want to show me their version of the magic trick. It can be a chief innovation evangelist. Sometimes it can be an accelerator or an incubator. But the most common is that they have a creativity room or a creative room. This is often a separate room far away from everything else, which tends to be filled with multicolored pillows, wraparound whiteboards, and more post-its than you imagined existed on the planet. And the funny thing is, they look exactly alike, no matter whether you are in Pyongyang or in New York. They all look the same. And the vice president or the CEO always asks me, what do you think? And I say, well, it sends a strong signal. And they become very proud. And they look at me and they want to know, yes, yes, I think so too. What signal do you think it sends? I said, I think it sends the signal to everyone in the organization. If you ever feel that you've been bitten by the creativity bug, get into the room. Close the door behind you so you will not infest or infect any of the other employees. These rooms are funny because they send the opposite signal of what they're supposed to send. They send the signal that no, creativity should exist only here in this closed room, and outside of it will be just as traditional and conservative as always. Because this is magic thinking. This is thinking that there would be this one thing, this one place, which we could utilize to become these great creatives. But your creative room won't save you. Instead of a creative room, you need to start about building an actual innovation architecture. And here people often kind of get slightly confused. And they ask me, why architecture? I mean, architecture seems a strange metaphor or analogy to use. Because we have these kind of things we say about architecture, such as this quote by Louis Kahn, architecture is the thoughtful making of space, making it sound very arty and very kind of far away from the everyday work with innovation. But I like the term architecture simply because architecture is not just dreaming and coming up with these fantastic slogans. We know deep in our hearts that in order to build a building, even a simple one, it's not enough just to be a good engineer. It's not enough just to have all these building blocks, the concrete, the wood, the steel. No, you need to be able to think about the whole of the building. You need to be able to think beyond just the parts and think about the whole. And you need to pay a lot of attention to the fact that in many cases, you simply can't go around haphazardly throwing around cabling, plumbing, and so on. No, you need to actually have a thought-through whole which creates not just a bunch of rooms, a bunch of walls, a bunch of connections, but something grander. Architecture is good as an analogy for innovation, because we can then start thinking about what are the different parts we need when we want to build our great edifice, our great palace, our great architectural construction. Well, we know the basics. We need to start with a foundation. Without a foundation, no house can stand. And what is the foundation? I often ask this of the CEOs, for instance, what is the foundation of your innovation processes? What's the thing everything rests on? And they often get quite confused and they say something like, well, it's our process, or it's our product, or it's our service. And I say, no, that's all wrong. None of that is the real foundation. That's the result. That's the end. That's what comes out of the house. The true foundation is always culture and capabilities. I have worked with hundreds of organizations all over the planet, and I have never met a company that doesn't have ideas. Every company has ideas. Every company, even in North Korea, is filled with ideas. But not every organization has a strong cultural foundation that takes care of these ideas. If you don't have the solid foundation from which ideas can start developing, you have nothing. You've built your house on sand. Every truly successful, innovative organization starts from a foundation of culture. People wanting to share ideas, of people wanting to work with ideas. If this isn't there, none of the rest matters. You can have the finest innovation management process in the world. You can buy an innovation strategy from McKinsey for $1 million hryvnia, and that will not matter if you do not have a culture that is prepared to develop ideas and work with them. So the first step, and the step that every CEO and leader should start building from, is, do we have a culture that actually values every person and every idea in the organization? Once we have our foundation, once we have this basis to build on, we can start putting in infrastructure, the plumbing, the wiring, the walls. This is, of course, something that companies are good at. Companies tend to be good at processes, and they tend to put in innovation management processes and so on. However, infrastructure in and of itself doesn't really matter. It needs to be there. We need all this infrastructure, but it's valuable only if it's connected in an intelligent fashion. You can build a fantastic set of plumbing, but if you built all your toilets in the other end of the house, you will not have an efficient house. You will have unusable toilets and pointless plumbing. If you have bearing walls put in non-bearing places, fine, lovely. You have a delightful kind of technology there, but it doesn't matter because it's in the wrong place and it's connected in the wrong way. I'll give an example. I've recently worked with one of the biggest companies in the world. They exist in the Ukraine because they exist basically in every country in the world at this point. Although they have, of course, exited the country we shouldn't be speaking about. And they have enormous amounts of money. They are incredibly rich. There is no limit to their resources. And they have these fantastic systems in place. They have what I call partial infrastructure. They have an excellent world-leading system for new idea development. It is incredibly easy in this organization to get a small amount of money to test an idea. They also have a robust innovation management system for any development idea from 10 million euros upwards. They are very good at taking these big innovation projects. However, they literally have nothing between 50,000 euro and 10 million euro. They've sort of built the pipe, which creates all these fantastic small little test ideas, these little experiments. And then here, far in the distance, they have something that could catch them, that could take them and make them something great. But they have no systematic process in place of how to take early stage ideas to commercialization. And when I pointed this out to them, they were dumbfounded. They didn't understand. Well, why don't we have that? I said, because you thought that it's all about building these systems, these pieces, and nobody thought like an architect. Nobody thought, how do we connect them? How does the kitchen connect to the dining room, connect to the living room, connect to the bedrooms? You have great rooms, but you have no doors between them. So connections are also important. And last but not least, purpose. Why do we do all these things? Why do we have this thing we call innovation? Why do we build these edifices? In architectural theory, this is sometimes called a gesture. A building is supposed to be a gesture in the space it exists in. For me, in innovation, it needs to be purpose. It needs to be for something. And at the risk of going slightly over my time, I'm going to tell you a little story. I met a delightful German man when I was working in Switzerland. He was the CEO and owner of a company that created a kind of cleaning product, industrial cleaning products. They, for instance, clean brewery systems and help in the cleaning of slaughterhouses. And they create these things, but he had a big problem. He couldn't attract new employees. He couldn't attract the smartest people from the best universities. And he thought about this long and hard and realized the reason was he did have a good culture in the company. He did have an innovation infrastructure. He even had these connections, but he didn't have a strong purpose. He couldn't communicate why somebody would innovate with him. And he decided, together with the United Nations, to take the same chemicals he had used to clean some of the biggest industrial setups in the world so that beer would be drinkable and meat would be safe to eat, and created a little pill for refugee camps, so that the water that refugees gave to their children could be cleansed by putting this little pill into even quite dirty water, let it work for a while, making the water drinkable. And he did that and said, this is our purpose. We're not cleaning slaughterhouses. We're not creating chemicals for breweries. We're saving lives. We're making things edible and drinkable for everyone, no matter where they are on the planet. That little pill increased the amount of people who desperately wanted to join his company and work with him by something like a tenfold, 10 times more students desperate to work with him, because all of a sudden he had the purpose for his innovation architecture. So what can you do with this? Well, I have 3 suggestions for you. 3 things you can do in your organization tomorrow to see how your innovation architecture actually works. And they're very simple things. The first thing, the foundational thing, are we actually listening to everyone in the organization? Go to a meeting. This doesn't matter what meeting, just any meeting, and sit there and listen to the meeting. You don't need to say anything. You don't need to ask anything, but simply observe. Are the meetings you're seeing in your organization meetings where everyone gets listened to? Or are they meetings where only a couple of people, the innovative ones, get to do all the talking, get to do all the commenting? If you have a case of the latter, you have a weak foundation. Innovation builds on diversity. It builds on us listening to everyone, no matter where in the hierarchy, no matter what race or ethnicity, no matter what gender or otherwise background. We need, for a strong foundation, a strong innovation culture, we need to be listening to all the ideas of the organization, not just the ones coming from the right people. We can test this easily. Just go and listen. What do your meetings sound like? Are they meetings where everyone is heard, listened to, and respected? Or are they meetings where very few dominate the conversation? Simple. If you have the latter, where only very few dominate, you need to start working. You need to start making sure that you get a better listening culture, that you start to catch those ideas that otherwise get lost. Your second thing you can try out. Go to one of the younger members of your staff. Go to somebody who just started or who is fairly low down in the hierarchy, and go ask him or her the following question. If you get a great idea, but would need 5,000 hryvnia, I'm sorry about my pronunciation, hryvnia, need 5,000 hryvnia to test it out, to do a little experiment, to check it out. Do you know how you could get those 5,000 hryvnia? If the person says no, you have a problem. Then you do not have an infrastructure in place, because then the many of the ideas that could elevate your organization to a higher level will get lost because people don't know how to get the resources to test them out. Then you can continue that experiment, asking how your middle managers, how do you get about to get 20,000 hryvnia? And trying to stress test, do people actually know how to get the resources they need to start innovating in your organization? And then the third notion. Go to your executives, your top people, and ask them, why are we innovating in this company? Why is innovation important to us? If all they can share is just cliches, banalities, such as we need to innovate or die, or it's important because our competitors innovate, so we have to too, you have a problem. Because then there is no purpose that is driving your organization, no real idea about the why. Simon Sinek, a lovely guy, by the way, has this book out called Start with Why. Why do we do it? Do we do it just because some American told us to? Do we do it just because we want to be like Apple? Those are not good reasons. Do we do it because we want to save children's lives? That's a far better reason. Do we want to do it because we want to make sure that we have the best sustainable plastic in the world? That's a far better thing. And I'm not saying this is enough. I'm not saying this will take you to the end. This will instantly, magically change your organization. But it might start a conversation, a discussion in your organization about what is it we do this for? Why are we working with this? And do we actually have systems in place that will help even the lowliest worker in our organization to try out the good ideas they have? Because I cannot tell you how many excellent ideas I've seen that have been killed because the person didn't look right or sound right. And the organizations I've seen who have excelled in being sustainably innovative, they have been the ones who work on foundation and purpose, not the ones who had the most elegant innovation management processes. We need to dare to do differently. We need to dare and have courage to test out our innovative ideas, even the ones that do not immediately sound like the best ideas. Our delightful MC here pointed out, I once, some time ago, wrote a book called Dangerous Ideas, in which I pointed out all truly life-changing and world-changing ideas were first laughed at, considered silly, considered stupid. And a lot of the time, what innovation is that we do the things that seem difficult because other people don't believe in them. But good innovation architectures with a strong purpose lets through even the dangerous ideas, the silly ideas. And this will become ever more important because the future of innovation will push the demands on us and push the demands on our innovation architectures to its limits. I've started to talk about augmented innovation because I'm a strong believer that in the coming 10 years, new technologies will make entirely new forms of innovation possible. And this is something that all companies need to pay attention to today, not because they might start using these technologies, but they need to be ready to adapt to them very rapidly once they start maturing. The key technologies here are artificial intelligence and machine learning, but also the broad notion of virtual reality, augmented reality, extended reality, which is sometimes referred to as the metaverse. Yes, I know. A lot of people are talking about them, and some of you are now thinking, oh no, not this crap again, because we are hyping these technologies a lot. But I want to maintain that we actually may be overhyping them in the short term, but underhyping them in the long term, because the manner in which these will change our capabilities for innovation will be world-changing. Because as new technologies come along, such as the Internet of Things, such as increasingly good data sets, and of course, with the advent or potential of quantum computing, completely novel forms of innovation behaviors will become possible. It might take 5 years, it might take 10, but hopefully most of us will be there when these will truly have their impact, because these technologies have a fantastic potential in transcending human capacities in more ways than one. One is we will be able to explore novel ideas in ways which has never been possible before. You may have noticed that we're talking a lot about artificial intelligence creating pictures, even videos these days. These are primitive technologies in a sense, because they're mainly kind of copying existing images and testing out variations of the same. But imagine when AIs will be able to start testing variations of designs, variations of car manufacturing setups, variations of factory setups. Only a week ago, I talked to the CEO of a major management consultancy who've already set up a digital twin of an entire global supply chain, so they can test novel ways in which optimizing a supply chain can bring in extra value. Or, for that matter, imagine that your factory or your production process could be created as a perfect digital twin, enabling you to test every imaginable variation of production technologies in your factory, trying to find the absolute optimum. This will change how we think about factories. It will change how we think about efficiency, and will totally, radically change how we think about developing new products, including pharmaceuticals. The second, these days, it's difficult to test things. We need to produce something, and then we need to run that thing through a lot of often damaging testing. With things such as artificial intelligence and the metaverse, we'll be able to create perfect copies, digital but still, of things and test them, stress test them, and explore them in ways that are merely thinkable, that are completely unthinkable today. My students are these days working on how to construct better wind power systems. They have to build complex prototypes to test even the slightest little change. In the future, they will be able to build the most amazing things inside a metaverse and then test them to their heart's delight, finding, together with their AI supporting them, entirely new ways of being and doing. We'll be able to really, truly enhance our capabilities for analysis, of seeing how materials that we actually can't even afford to prototype in, how they would work together with our existing machinery. All this will become incredibly cheap, incredibly easy, and incredibly quick. And will be able to communicate and represent our ideas in ways that today will seem completely unfathomable. In 10 years, if you are, for instance, an architect, you'll be able to build a perfect replica of the house you've dreamt of in materials you absolutely could not normally afford to even test. And then invite your client for a walkthrough of this house, seeing every smallest detail of it, far before you poured the first pint of concrete or put the first rock in place. This will utterly change how we think about creation and how we can start collaborating with entirely new forms of innovative forms of doing. The innovation manager will become a cyborg, an almost super-powered creature who will be able to truly go beyond what today seems like the right way of working. And this will actually give us superpowers of creation. We will just have to ask our AI support, show me what this boat would look like if it's made out of aluminum, porcelain, stainless steel, normal steel, wood, wool, paper, whatever you can imagine. You'll be able to test so many ideas and so many variations before you've had your first morning coffee that the greatest boat engineer from 20 years ago didn't do as many variations and tests in a lifetime. And things will only get stranger from here. We are all waiting for victory, and we're all waiting for rebuilding. But things will not just be simple and smooth as we start rebuilding. On the contrary, we will start moving into an age in which it becomes ever more important that your innovation architecture is in place. Because as the new capable people come out of universities, knowing how these new digital tools, artificial intelligence works, they will demand a culture in which they get to work with this. They will demand a well-connected infrastructure to realize their ideas, and they will demand a purpose. It won't be easy, but the things we'll be able to create with all this, the things we'll be able to build with these fantastic new technologies will truly change the world. Yet at the same time, whilst it might sound like I'm talking so strongly for new tech and fantastic new toys, remember what I said about the foundation. Yes, AI will change things. Yes, the metaverse will make product development a completely different ballgame. But in the end, it's all about the foundation, about an innovation culture that respects everyone in the organization, and leaders who are humble enough to listen to everyone's ideas, not just those who have the highest title, the loudest voice, or the finest technology. Many times in the organizations I've worked with, the finest ideas, the most important, disruptive, transformative ideas came from people who did not have a fine school background, who couldn't always talk or explain them elegantly, but who could think differently, push some new kind of idea forward, who had the courage to create. And the best leaders were the ones who humbled themselves in front of this and were prepared to let respect dominate their innovation architecture. Thank you very much. Slava Ukraini.
Thank you very much, Professor. And it's even hard to start. Actually, you answered some questions during your presentation, which I had, but much more appeared also in our Q&A list. I appreciate you linked actually to get some kind of glued together those presentations we had before and some related to how to create the culture of listening in the organization. and how to create a structure or business model for innovation. So it's not the first time we speak about innovation. I checked before and you started with this, that we have a number of times, a huge amount of words used in different sources. And Google and Graham told me that it increased 6 times usage of word innovation over the last 50 years. 6 times, have we really started to be more innovative? Because in my opinion, it's up to you, we just sometimes call what we call before change, improvement, adaptation, and something like this, we call it now innovation. So I'd love to hear your opinion, and also just to be more specific, what is your favorite definition of innovation? Because the person who actually made a certain revolution in economics, Joseph Schumpeter, gave a very simple and very business-oriented definition, like everything which either reduce cost or increase sales, increase the demand. That's innovation. What is your favorite definition of innovation, and how would you think about, do we really need always to innovate and all the companies to innovate, otherwise we will not have a business?
I'm actually, I have a problem both with definitions of innovation and with the notion that everyone needs to innovate all the time. Because there are companies, there is a Japanese company that builds Shinto temples. They have been operating more or less in the same way they do today for 1,000 years. They've existed 1,000 years, and they're using the same technologies, the same ways of building. You can survive for 1,000 years if you're the best in doing what you do, and people still want to buy it. That said, obviously we need some form of change, some form of development. My definition, because whilst I have a lot of respect for Schumpeter, he was a very curious man, but also a very intelligent man. My personal definition, I'm not sure it's my favorite, because it seems arrogant to call your own definition your favorite. I've said that an innovation is a novel idea realized that gains acceptance in its given market. So there's 3 parts. There needs to be an idea, there needs to be novelty, something that's new, at least for where it appears. It needs to be developed, so it's not just a flight of fancy or a hope or a wish. And it needs to meet a market. And a market here can be, for instance, the educational market, kindergarten as a market, because I think that you can innovate in very many ways outside of the economic sphere. But your first question was, do we really need to talk this much about it? No, I wish we talked less about it. I think we should be very careful about what we call an innovation, because I collect advertising texts. I have advertising text for a pencil sharpener, which is supposed to be a revolutionary innovation in pencil sharpening. It sharpens pencils. It does something we've done for decades, maybe slightly better. It's not an innovation, and definitely not a revolution. So we should look humbly on innovation. We should not start kind of going that everything we do is innovative, and we shouldn't think that we have to innovate all the time. But we should be prepared to listen to those around us who want to do in novel ways. Listen to those around us who want to try out new things. I'm 50 years old. I have to accept these days that I'm 50 years old, and I work with young people all the time. And I can find it in myself that I'll have a student say, no, I want to do it like this. And I'm immediately going, no, I know better. I'm older, wiser, and I have a finer title than you do. And then stop myself and go, you're doing it, Alf. Stop yourself. You're supposed to listen and let them try, because you could be wrong. I'm often wrong. just because I have a title of professor doesn't mean I'm intelligent. I mean, you obviously are, but you and I have both met unintelligent professors. So I need to realize that humbling myself and being humble and listening is important for me as well, because it's not about whether I innovate or even you innovate. It's about whether we as a society innovate. So everything I'm talking about is, let's talk about it less. Let's get less caught up in definitions and more talk about, does everyone get a voice? Is everyone heard? Is everyone engaged with?
Okay, then we come to these foundations and very important issue. We have a question. I will reformulate a little bit but it comes on how you listen. All our organizations, especially the big one, and actually, first of all, when speaking about innovative organization, the typical examples are about big Airbnb, I don't know, Uber, Apple, Microsoft, etc. Something very big. So, in very big organization used to be hierarchically organized. They have all these layers of responsibilities, etc., etc., etc. So also in universities and those institutes. What could be done, just directly our participants? What have you done to change that practically? Listening, common. You somehow reflected and presented your own practice, your own approach, and made recommendations. But could you a little bit expand your recommendations? Sure. What have to be done to really increase foundation, so to make it harder, to make it stronger?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and I'm afraid we don't have time to go into super deep kind of conversation about it. Yes. What I tend to kind of point out that it's of course different for every different organization. So I don't believe in magic pills. I don't believe in here is this one thing I can do and say that will work everywhere. But I can tell you a story about how it worked with one company I worked with. The CEO of this company realized that there was a distinct problem with the way in which they approached innovation. They had tons of innovation projects, nothing new was created. So he does something based on something I'd said almost as a joke. I kind of said something in a discussion we'd had about, we should forbid talking about innovation. And he came and to his entire organization said that he's declaring now a moratorium, a temporary stop for all innovation projects. He said, for the coming 6 months, no new innovation projects can be started. And I was shocked because he hadn't talked to me before this, and everyone in the organization was shocked, but he's the boss, he decides. And I asked him, what the hell was that? Why did you do that? And I said, no, because you told me to. You said that we're running around like kind of headless chickens and nobody really kind of focuses on innovation, which was true. I'd said that and I stand by that. What happened in that organization? 2 things happened and they were beautiful. The people who were tired of innovation and running around like headless chickens and going to innovation meetings and workshops and such, they loved it because they got to do their own work. They got to just knuckle down, work on their things, getting their inbox cleaned. For 6 months, nobody bothered them about innovation. The people who loved innovation, they started a guerrilla movement. They started a resistance movement. They started having innovation meetings in kind of in hiding. They met up at each other's apartments to plan the innovation projects they would launch when this kind of stop to all innovation was ended. When he 6 months later said, okay, the moratorium is now over, we can restart our innovation activities. Again, 2 things happened. The people who had hated innovation, the people who loved innovation came rushing in with all this energy, this passion. They were going to prove to everyone that they truly could create something. The people who had been so tired of innovation were now so refreshed that I thought, I might join this project. This sounds fun. I could come on board. I tell that story because there is no one way to change a culture. But what you need to do is to look at what is the key problem in this culture. Is it that we're too domineering? Is it that we talk too much? Is it that we're kind of spinning our wheels? And then you do something to shake that foundation. As you harden steel, when you heat steel and you harden it by putting cold water on it. You need to harden foundations. You need to find the pain points, and you need to kind of create a small shock to the system. And I'm not saying that you should declare now innovation is now forbidden in this company. I'm just saying that you need to think about what are the tensions and issues internally that might make innovation difficult for this organization, and how can culture be changed by twisting things around. Leading the innovative organization demands a tremendous amount of courage. It doesn't necessarily demand enormous investments in innovation consultants. It demands daring to try out new things and to listen to the organization as you do it. In a very real way, it's quite simple.
Okay, thank you. Well, so there is no magic pill anyway. I understood it's difficult. So in other words, but we spoke about big organization, but if we speak about middle or small organization, we have a question from our attendees working in the agriculture sector, let's say farm, which is important for Ukraine in particular. Ukraine is this advanced agricultural country at the moment. Would you have any specific recommendation to smaller agricultural company about either to improve or to innovate or let's say innovate? Let's stick to this word.
Yes. I think agriculture is a fantastically interesting field. And you have to remember, I'm in Denmark. We're also a big agricultural country. And there are two things I think agriculture needs to think about a lot right now. The first one is dare to experiment. Dare to try out, even in small scale, new crops, new water management methodologies, and so on. Too often agricultural companies kind of get stuck in, we're just agriculture, we can't experiment because we're just doing this. No, you can. Right now in Odense, in the small city, actually large village that my university is on, what are they focusing on right now in the agricultural sector? Marijuana, cannabis, weed, which of course is in some countries illegal, but is increasingly becoming legalized on federal level in the US, so it's very close to being it. And Denmark wants to be world leading in medical marijuana. You might laugh at it because we think about it as a drug, we think about it as kind of this, oh my God, horrible kind of marijuana smoking hipsters. No, in Odense, agriculture companies have said, well, we're great at farming things. We're tremendously good at making things grow, and nothing grows like cannabis. It's a fantastic crop. So a lot of very traditional agricultural companies in Odense are now becoming world-leading companies in medical marijuana because they dared to try. The other thing is technology. There is still so much to do in agriculture companies actually utilizing technologies better. A couple of students of mine, for instance, I'm not sure about how big pig farming is in the Ukraine, but I would assume there are a fair few pig farms. Denmark is big in pig farming. One of the biggest problems in pig farming is when piglets are born, So when baby pigs are born, it's quite common that 1 out of 8 piglets die during birth. And that's often because the farmer doesn't know when the mama pig goes into labor. So a couple of my very intelligent students created a cheap visual AI-driven camera system that observes pigs when they might start labor and immediately inform the farmer when this happens, so he or she can be there to ensure that no piglets die unnecessarily during birth. This has, for some of these farms, massively increased their profit margins, because a cheap AI-driven camera can save a lot of piglets, and piglets grow up to become big pigs, and big pigs can be sold for big money. So 2 things: experiment and dare to try out new technologies.
Thank you for examples. I can't but ask you a question. Probably you heard about this. You're born in Finland, live and teach in Denmark. The countries in Europe are the most egalitarian, let's say, with high taxes and very much more equal society, let's call, than that of existing in the US. I personally had several times that this non-egalitarian US society is very promoting innovation, and therefore is justified by doing this. So inequality is just a payment, the cost of being more innovative. And I'd love, not often talk to somebody from Denmark and Finland. I'd love to know your opinion about this, whether really big high taxes somehow depress innovation or not.
They can in certain settings. I don't think that there is a single kind of solution that works for everything. And yes, the US system has created a tremendous amount of innovation. That said, I believe that if you look at the number of leading companies and leading innovations that come out of the frankly teeny tiny amount kind of area of the Nordics, I mean, together we're about 25 million. That's basically a large Chinese city. Together we're 25 million. I can't remember the exact how many people live in the Ukraine.
Currently, it's hard to tell. Let's say before the war was 35-40 million.
Yes, so we're about, let's say we're 2/3 of the Ukraine. I have a tremendous amount of respect for what Ukraine economy has done. There's some incredible AI kind of companies in the Ukraine. But if you look at what Finland, Sweden, Denmark, and Norway have created, we actually have created a tremendous amount of some of the biggest tech companies, some of the biggest kind of innovations in the world. And that is because whilst social inequality can push for certain kinds of individuals, like Elon Musk, for instance, who now is also trying to become a geopolitician and basically repeating Kremlin lies, which I believe is the beginning of the end for him. What the Nordics have achieved is a system very much kind of in line with what I call an innovation architecture. I used to live in England for a while, and I looked recently in a Guardian analysis of how much it costs to have your children in daycare. For a London couple to have two children in daycare will take the entire salary of one of these people. Entire. That means they use something like 2/3 of a one person's salary to just have children in daycare. When I had my child in daycare in Denmark, it cost approximately 1,000 grivna. 1,000 grivna a month. That included food, jazz festivals, trips, everything. Which means everyone in Denmark works. Nobody needs to stay home to take care of children. Kindergarten Childcare has ensured that Denmark and Finland and Sweden have 100% more people out there in companies having ideas, innovating than the UK can. That is the simple mathematics of it all. Yes, we pay high taxes, but all of us pay taxes, all of us out there working, men, women, everyone. Because yes, we pay a lot in taxes, but they keep us alive. The social security system is great. The healthcare system is great. We stay alive for long, and we keep working, keep generating ideas, no matter if we are men or women, no matter our background, we're there producing. Sorry, that sounded very political. I didn't mean to become very political, but you tricked me into this little kind of...
No. It's not about politics. It's actually interesting. I believe, okay, it's not probably very popular to speak of Nokia currently, but it's still in a different field, not so huge consumer goods, but a different field. It's still one of the most innovating companies, and the cluster around Helsinki is the most innovating in Europe. And sometimes it's not mentioned, and therefore I believe it's not political, just not to be somehow biased towards creating political and tax and other systems to justify innovation.
If I may, I just want, because I think this might resonate also with reference to the question about agriculture. The girl, because it was a young woman who started that AI company that observes pigs being born, which sounds like such a silly thing, but it's actually a very viable company. They're actually doing very well now. She came from a very poor background. Her parents were pig farmers, so she knew something about pig farming. They had, none of them in her entire family, none had gone to university ever. She was the first one. She was dyslexic, that is, she had problems reading and writing. But she was a fighter. So we get her through, she becomes an engineer, she gets her degree. When I met her parents, they were so flustered by the fact that I'm a professor that they could barely shake my hand. That is how poor and how uneducated and how kind of far away from it is. And their daughter is now the CEO of an AI company. That is true class mobility. That is what Denmark enables, that the dyslexic child of a poor pig farmer can become the CEO of an AI company. That's the strength of the Nordics. That is what our system actually can generate. And that matters because, as I said, if we think not about innovation architecture in an organization, in a company, but in a country, if even the kind of poorest of persons from Eastern Ukraine can feel they can have their voice heard, they can go to a university, they can develop, they can better themselves, they can become something, they can start a firm, they can become, as Schumpeter said, agents of creative destruction. My God, the power in Ukraine. The power, if all of the capabilities, all of the power, mental power, all of the ideas in the Ukraine, what a beautiful thing. What a beautiful thing if all this could be captured.
Professor Rehn, I don't want to spoil anything what you've said right now by any other questions. Therefore, I will not mention Mark Zuckerberg and Metaverse, and kindly invite you to visit Ukraine next time and have another opportunity to lecture, to talk about this very, very interesting and not very easy subject to discussion. Yes, you're right. Ukraine is famous with this IT sector, which is next to agriculture, providing them the export potential, and we still are. and we still like to be like more like Finnish and Danish rather than probably, I don't know, not speaking on behalf of everybody, and not mentioning California, which is a nice place to live, but not to be, like Americans, only Americans. So with these words and with great appreciation for your time, we actually have 10 minutes more. I'd like to thank you, cordially invite you to Ukraine at different time, and announce that our project to everybody, Reinforce UA, will go on despite all the shelling, all the attempts to shut us down, and not stop speaking. And so I invite everybody to join the next Wednesday at 6 p.m. when we shall meet. You can. You want to say yes?
Can I just say? Please continue with. Can I end by saying two things? Please continue.
Yes, we shall meet Ron Carucci, Loan and Trust business consultant who works in 25 countries on 4 continents, author of 9 books, and he will speak about the subject which is at the moment is not very popular, actually, about trust. And his most recent book was, To Be Honest, Lead with the Power of Truth. In current words is really, we need again a definition what the truth is. So I invite everybody, and Professor Rehn, if you want to add a few words at the end, you're welcome.
I just want to say 2 more things. To those of you who asked questions, for instance, in the Q&A, particularly Frank Karlberg, do reach out and mail me directly. I'd be happy to continue a conversation, happy to continue with any one of the attendees who just want to mail me. I'm easy to find on the internet. Just mail me and I'm happy to continue the dialogue. And the last thing I just want to say, Slava Ukraini.
Thank you very much. And I apologize in front of all the attendees who ask questions. Our time frame just don't allow to discuss such subject like a purpose of the life, for example, which is also important issue, but not probably for this evening. So see you all, not see you, feel you all next Wednesday at 6 p.m. Goodbye. Бережіть себе. Слава Україні.
The war in Ukraine has changed the world. And now we need to think about where this world is moving to, together. That's why MIM Business School is launching the nationwide educational project Reinforce UA, where the world's greatest minds will share their ideas and insights. And you will get their experience, change your perspective, and discover what changes should the business be ready for, before and after the victory. Every week on reinforceua.com.